is a gift.
Hello, hello. Good morning and welcome to Rise and Shine with Morning Moon. My name is Coach Lacey, and if you haven't already, be sure to hit the subscribe button or the follow button wherever you have found me on the big wild web. Well, everyone, I hope that you have been having a wonderful week and I hope you enjoy my new intro video. Isn't that cool? My friend made it for me and I'm really loving it. So if you want an intro video made for yourself and you're watching this, send me a message and I can hook you up. This guy is the bomb. If you're new here, my name is Coach Lacey. Buckle up, buckaroo, because we don't do surface level conversations in this space. Today, I want to talk about something that has been popping up quite a bit lately in my world, and honestly, it's probably going to trigger some of you. Good. That means we're going somewhere real. I'm the queen of triggering controversy. So, welcome to my space and just get ready because I sometimes bring things to the surface that are a little bit uncomfortable for some people. So, the thing that I'm seeing everywhere right now is that oh, people think that loving someone means being a doormat to their disrespect. And then on the flip side, they think that having boundaries means cutting everybody off who doesn't think exactly like them or tolerate their bad behavior. Both of these things are just BS, and I am tired of watching good people twist themselves up trying to figure out how to love people without losing themselves or the people they love in the process. So let's talk about it. I get it. We are told to love our neighbors, love our family, turn the other cheek, forgive 70 times. But somewhere along the way, we start confusing love with being a pushover. And that is not okay. You shouldn't allow people to disrespect you repeatedly. You shouldn't allow people to talk to you like you are not a human being, to curse at you, to talk down to you, to act like you are the stain on their shoe or act like they know more than you. If you've had a lot of life experience, accepting destructive behavior just because that's how they are, and staying silent when this one is my biggest pet peeve. I have the hardest time staying silent when people are spreading lies and drama and talking mess about other people and provoking us just by being disrespectful. That one is a really big pet peeve of mine. I don't like it when people lie about other people. I hate it when people lie. It just makes me angry, makes me want to scream, and then they turn around and are nice to you to their face. That crap makes me furious. That is the quickest way to get me exited out of your life, is to talk mess about me when I'm not around. The people I love the most are the ones who will defend me when I am not in the room, even if they don't agree with me all the times. And I have a lot of people in my life who who will defend my name in the room of other folks who don't understand why I am the way I am. I am controversial in many circles because I don't take people's crap. I just don't. And if I dish it out, you damn right, I'm going to be able to take it. But I don't like it when people attack me for no reason. And I don't like it when my name is being drugged through the dirt because someone can't look in the mirror and see what they've done to contribute to the situation. That drives me insane. That makes me absolutely furious. And to enable someone's destructive patterns because you don't want to hurt their feelings is just complete, utter BS. And as you can tell, it trips my trigger, man. It makes me really, really angry. I'm not perfect. I have screwed up a bunch, a bunch, and I will continue to screw up. But the thing about that is different between people like me who recognize where we've gone wrong and we are able to self-reflect and say, you know what, I could have said that a little better. I could have approached that in a kinder fashion. Maybe I shouldn't have been so harsh. Maybe I shouldn't have been so trigger hair. There are certain things in this world that trigger me, and as you can tell, lying is one of them, and being two-faced is the other. I will always say how I feel to you, to your face. If I think you're being a jackass, I'm going to tell you. And if that makes you upset and makes you cut me out and then go talk crap about me to everybody around you, mm-mm, that that doesn't fly, you know? So the thing is we're all going to have disagreements. We are all going to have points where we don't see eye to eye. We are all going to have moments of disappointment. We are all going to have moments where we screw up and we don't do the right thing. I've done that a bunch. Like there are many times where I have screwed up and I should have done X, Y, and Z. And instead I did one, two, and three. And I have to self-reflect. But for some reason, I don't want to say always because I don't want to deal in absolutes, but I get drugged through the mud by people and I'm kind until I'm not. And then the second I'm not, I get treated as though I'm the bad guy. And it's just me putting a mirror up to people saying, this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable. I mean, those of you out there who are Christians, you know that Jesus himself had disagreements. He flipped tables in the temple. He called people out. He walked away from situations that were not serving his purpose. And he distanced himself from people who were, frankly, treating him incredibly badly. But then he immersed himself and gave himself away to those people, which is something that not anybody can do, right? Only I'm not trying to get holy on you guys again, but I when I talk to you about Christianity and things that are rooted um in the Bible, it is I'm a new Christian. I'm not, I mean, I grew up Christian, but if you're new to me, I grew up Catholic. We converted to Protestantism, and then I converted to Satanism, and then I converted to Wiccanism, and then I just became a chaos magician, and I was in the New Age world, and in 2020 I saw hell. And when I saw hell, it stirred something in me, and I knew that if hell is real in the way that I saw it, um, through hunting the predator ring, the social media predator ring, I've seen some really dark things. I don't need to go into it, but if those dark things exist, then the counter has to exist. And I get triggered. I get triggered when people say things to me, like about my politics, and they say that I align myself with certain, because I am a conservative libertarian, that conservative word triggers people. And there's a lot of political discourse right now, and a lot of people that have just uh, they don't know what they're talking about, and it becomes um they're not well researched. They are biased. They have been, groomed by the Mockingbird media. They've been groomed by legacy television and legacy news. And Mama don't play that way. I don't do that. I look at all sides of things, and I watch a lot of underground news, and I read books. My knowledge comes from a body of work that I have read from many different walks of life throughout my lifetime of almost being 40 years old. And, the political disagreements are getting pretty wild out there, and they're causing family members to say, rotten things to each other. They're causing people to act like they know all the answers when the reality is even someone as well researched as me is sometimes I'm incorrect. Sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I'm speculating, but I'm a lot more well researched than someone who just hopped on social media or watched legacy news for their whole life. And it's frustrating to me, and I get really angry when people attack me and they say horrible things to me. Yeah, just outright horrible things that just flat aren't true. And then they lie to themselves and they lie to others and then they act like it's the truth. And then those lies create realities and it spreads more mistrust and untruth and it creates new conflict. And it's stirring the pot. It's being a shit stirrer. And I don't appreciate people that are shit stirrers and stir the pot and who cannot take a look in the mirror and see where they have been wrong. And am I supposed to just take people treating me badly? That is the thing, you know? If you think that being a good person means never rocking the boat, you have missed the memo. Do you even know what a good person is? A good person, there's a difference between being nice and being kind. Being kind is telling the truth. And being kind is having compassion. And being kind is showing up for people even when you don't want to. Even when they have disappointed you greatly, even when they have hurt you deeply, even when they have talked all the smack about you in the world to everyone who hasn't been in the room with you, and you walk into the room and you can feel the silence of what that person has said. And that's evil. That's evil. But people who can own up to their mistakes and say, you know what? I made a mistake here. I did wrong. And I messed up here and there and I said this and I shouldn't have, and I'm sorry. But I am asking for your forgiveness and I am asking for your love. That is real spiritual growth. That is real growth. And that is real discernment. Not this postulating and pretending that we see so much on social media. You know, when I got sober, which it hasn't been very long, because that is a big lifelong mistake of mine of not being sober. I've been sober for almost 2 months now, like completely sober from alcohol, marijuana, and the vape pen, all those things. And when I found God, when I quit the new age and I started like saying no to certain rituals and well, saying no to rituals, not certain rituals. I've been saying no to rituals, saying no to the moon circles, saying no to all these different things that don't sit right with my spirit because you do you, boo boo. If you want to do that, that's you. But I don't want to open myself up to spirits that are not holy. That is not that of Jesus Christ. And that is me. I don't want to partake in that. If you want to partake in that and that's your gig, that's your life, that's your path, that's your walk. I have been there, done that, and it was a dead path. It was not, it was a shallow well that I couldn't get a drink from. And I have finally found the quench to my thirst of the spirit. And when my political views shifted, holy crap, when my political views shifted, I used to be liberal. I voted for Hillary Clinton. So bad. Like in the concern, like if you actually knew and you've seen the things I've seen, I have seen the video that people talk about. I've seen it. It's not what you think, and I've seen it. I've seen things just as bad, if not worse than that, that have shaken my soul and made me who I am today. But when my political views shifted and I said, no, I'm not going to take that requirement. I am not going to shut up. I'm not going to put that on. I'm not going to suffocate myself. I am not going to stand in the crowd with a sign that I don't align with. I am not going to take your crap. I lost people I love. All those situations, every situation, continually losing people I love because of these situations. And people I love deeply. And for a while, I thought that meant I was doing something wrong and that maybe I was being too harsh. Maybe I need to just tone it down, or maybe I need to keep my mouth shut just to keep the peace. Boy, was I wrong. Just keeping the peace. What kind of crap is that? Like, why? Hmm. I had to get radically honest with myself. And people walk away because they weren't ready for growth, my growth, or their own growth. They weren't ready for a change. Their consciousness was not ready for where I was at in my journey, and they walked away. But I also had to look in the mirror and ask myself, what part did I play in these relationships falling apart? Oof. Like sometimes that's really difficult to take a look at yourself and recognize where you've been too harsh, where you've been too judgmental, where you've been too snarky. That's me. I'm too snarky. I am judgmental. I am harsh. I have um a dagger for a tongue. If you piss me off, I will say some smack. I will talk the smack. I will say the thing that I see the worst in you and I will reflect it back. And that comes from my great grandmother. Like, yes, I am responsible for that, but it comes from my great grandmother. It's a long line. I learned that through my family. My mom has a sharp ass tongue. My grandma's tongue, even sharper. Some of the things that my own mother has said to me would, oh, just make people crumble. But I still love her and I still, you know, want her in my life and I still enjoy her and we still laugh together and we still have a decent relationship. But it's because I was radically honest with myself. Like, what part was I playing? Where was I communicating, in a bad way? Where was I um being difficult? Like, where was I being patient, with people in my life who were on a different growth timeline than me? Sometimes it doesn't matter what age you are, we're all in different growth timelines. And and sometimes it's really difficult to recognize where people are at in their timeline when you are just focused on yourself. And that's something I've been very selfish and very self-centered. Been a lot about me, 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 me. And recently in my older years, I'm starting to realize it's not all about me. And I need to start thinking about other people's feelings and other people's thoughts and other people's emotions. Um, and that's something that I'm working on. And that's hard. That's hard for me because when I get pissed, I want to make people feel bad. I want to get back at them for making me feel a certain way, and I'm owning that. And to anybody I've hurt with my words, I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I truly apologize. I don't even want to say I'm sorry because I'm sorry is dead words. I want to say that I apologize. I apologize if I've ever hurt anybody who knows me watching this. But, the thing that we often don't take a look at and that many people don't want to hear is that sometimes we lose people because we are the ones who changed the rules without giving them time to adjust. We didn't really sometimes we're just so excited about our own growth and we become intolerant to the people who haven't kind of hit that milestone in their journey yet. And again, age is just a number when it comes to the spiritual journey. And I never want to say that I've made it, because I haven't made it. I'm still learning and growing, um, and it's a lifelong journey. It doesn't matter how much money you make. It doesn't matter how many, awards you get. It doesn't matter how well you're doing in your career. It doesn't matter how many friends you have. It doesn't matter how many connections or your network. It doesn't matter how many followers you have. It doesn't matter. Growth, it doesn't have an end point. You continually keep growing throughout your entire life. And sometimes we have to learn these lessons again and again and again. You might have some emotional maturity that, when you're a young person, that older people don't have, but you are probably lacking in some area of your life that needs to be worked on. And if you can recognize that and not lie to yourself and lie to others about who you are, and not pretend to be one person when this person's around and another when this person's around, that is growth. Like it's to pretend to be something you're not. It's one thing when you're young and you're trying on identities, but most of the time we really know in the core heart of our hearts what's right. And we know who we are really at the core things. And for us to expect other people to know that is it's wrong of us. It's not right to expect people to reflect those changes or understand the rules, like understand where you have changed if they haven't been where you've been, you know? And like I said, I've had to take radical responsibility for my side of the street, for how I show up in the world. How do you want to show up in the world? One of my mentors used to say that all the time. How do you want to show up in the world? You know? Well, I've been incredibly self-righteous, and I've been incredibly judgmental. And I make people feel judged instead of loved very often. And that's my own inner child wound. And that's my own thing that I'm working through. And, there's a lot of people that are triggered by me because I'm a triggering woman. I come out, I say it, I tell it like it is, and I don't hold back. And maybe there are times where I should, or perhaps I need to word it in a more compassionate way so that it's understood for where they're at in their journey. And wherever people are at in their journey is not wrong. That's just their journey. That's just their journey. And I've had times in my life where I've changed drastically, and I'm not the girl, I'm not the woman, I'm not the person that I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. The girl that I was 5 years ago is completely different than who I am right now. The woman that I was 3 years ago is completely different than I am right now. The woman that I am today is worlds different than who I was even 2 months ago. I was smoking pot morning, noon, and night 2 months ago. And I'm owning that. And I'm not going to lie about it. And I'm not going to hide it because I'm afraid of what people think. I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of trauma. I have a lot of trauma. I have a lot of grief. I have a lot of loss. I've been through things that people couldn't handle. And I'm not saying that I'm special because of that. I'm saying that if you don't understand where I'm coming from and why I'm so harsh, it's because the world is harsh. Some of you who watch me and who've been with me a long time, you know what I'm talking about. You were part of what we did in 2020. And I'm not talking about 2020 itself. I'm talking about exposing the social media predator ring. And there's a lot of you out there who are parents who could absolutely, not handle the things that we saw and that we reported and that we turned in and that we created reports and you know, helped bring to investigators. I mean, I can't go into it because it's sensitive information, and I just want all of you to know that are new to me, that aren't new to me, that that changed me. And those there are a few of you who walked with me through that. They changed you too, and you know. And family, I have family who doesn't understand me. They don't get it. They think they know what they're talking about politically. They have no idea. And I'm not saying that it's one-sided because it's both sides, that is for sure. But there is definitely dark and light. And I'm hopeful that um that the truth is being revealed. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't need to go into it anymore because it's triggering for people. And these changes that I've made spiritually, emotionally, in my purse politically, it's probably scared a lot of people. And I've dealt with people who just flat out have just met me. There's a few people in my world that have just met me, and they don't like me because of what they see on my Facebook timeline. But they don't see the hell that I have gone through. And not just collectively. Since I turned into since basically since like 2011, my life just hit a weird turn, and I was hit with more grief than most people have lived in their lifetime. I have experienced more trauma than I would ever like to admit, and it's nobody's business what, what you've walked through if you've been through things too. And those of you who have been through the thick of it understand. And so really I'm talking to you, but I'm not necessarily talking to you. I'm talking to those people who have lived those cushy lives that have, that cut people off at any sort of discomfort. Oh, you're toxic. I'm cutting you off. And they postulate and act like they know. They don't know. They haven't seen it. They haven't had that life experience yet. You could be 50 years old and not yet had a moment of deep grief. You know, you could be 50 years old and lived in a bubble, and that's not your fault, but you're going to learn that life isn't that life is not happy and shiny and oh, it's all good, man. It's not. It's not. Life is like nature. It's like the wild. And sometimes that cute little animal gets eaten by a wild animal, and it's horrific and disgusting and sad. But that is resiliency. And that is what I am here to walk people through. We've been all finding our purpose. I'm finding my purpose, and I'm learning that my purpose on this earth is to help raise the collective toughness level. Like my purpose on this earth is to help others be stronger and have more perseverance and not be so triggered and offended and bleh, like get out of here. You're triggering, gaslighting, you're toxic. That is so weak. And that might trigger you, and you're probably going to exit out and never watch me again. And that's where, I make people feel judged instead of loved. But the people that stay, man, I love you. They're amazing. And they stay because, you know, they have learned how to grow alongside that sort of abrasiveness. But they also stayed because I learned how to grow next to them without making them feel like crap about who they were. And that's something I'm still working on. I can be a lot for those people out there who are too much. I'm too much. And I know the feeling of being held at an arm's length because I'm a lot, you know. And the thing I've learned about having real relationships with real people is it really just starts with taking a look in the mirror, radical responsibility, and brutal self-honesty. Like, you can love someone and think that they're making terrible choices. And you can disagree with somebody, but you can still respect them. Making blanket statements like everybody is X, Y, and Z because they did this, that, and the other thing. No. And you don't have to tolerate people's disrespect. I don't tolerate disrespect. If someone calls me a name, that's that. Oh, sometimes it's then they open that can of worms, man. They open that can of whoop ass, and when I come and smack and whoop their ass, they go crying about it, And then I get cut off. Well, bye, because I don't need that energy in my life. Come back around when you have a spine, when you can handle it. And I'm not trying to be rude to people. I have to set my boundaries. But, I'm the type of person like that will be brutally honest and take brutal honesty because damn it, I've had some pretty mean stuff said to me. I've had the meanest stuff said to me. I've had things said to me by the people I love the most in this world. And I still walk next to them and hug them and love them. I don't cut people off. I think that cutting people off, unless they're like truly just insane, even then, I just I don't do that. I don't cut people off. I think it's a measurement of weakness. I don't, unless it's just like continual and continual and continual and continual, I won't ever cut someone off completely. I can set my boundaries and still maintain connection. Um, but the key before you can set your boundaries, you better make sure that you've cleaned up your side of the fence first, right? Like before we point something that someone else is doing wrong, we have to ask ourselves, are we approaching this from love, a place of love, or are we being egotistical? In my case, I can be absolutely loving and egotistical. I will own that. I've been through a lot and I've learned a lot. I've done a lot. And so sometimes that comes with my ego and I have to shut that MFer up, and I have to ask myself all the time what I think I'm going to accomplish with that, with my responses. Am I actually seeking real connection or do I just want to be right? I get caught up in the I'm right thing and that's something that I'm working on. Um, and the other thing is like, are you consistent with your own values in the relationship with people? Like, are you actually showing up? How do you want to show up in the world? Are you actually showing up with kindness and with love? And are you actually showing up for yourself? Like, what are the lies that you tell yourself? What are the excuses you give to people? Are you someone that shows up late all the time and then has an excuse for it and it's everybody else's fault but yours? That's the easiest example I could have, or just pretend like it didn't happen. Like, come on, get real. You know, Ask yourself if you're triggered because they are wrong or because it's the reflection that you don't like about yourself, you know? And if you're somebody that goes and spreads rumors and talks crap about people when they're not around and don't have um, you don't have the cojones to say it to their face. What are you afraid of? Why not just say it? And consequently, you don't need to go around slandering people because they didn't, because yeah, they did wrong. You need to talk to that person, but you don't go and drag their good name around to everyone around you because it makes you feel better. That just makes you look like a jerk and like you can't get along with people. And that's something I've learned myself because I used to be like that. Um I used to really talk a lot of mess about people when they weren't doing what I wanted and when I thought that I was always right. And instead of going around and talking things about other people to other people, I just say it to that person and that's good. Or if there's other people involved in the conflict, we need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. So it's like sometimes conflicts aren't just between me and you or you and them. Sometimes they are between a host of people, a collective, oftentimes it's family. And have you made a bad decision that you're hiding from that you can't own up to? Like, and people that might know me that are watching this are like, oh my God, is she talking about me? I'm talking about everyone. And these are issues that happen with people I work with, people that I'm family with, people that I'm friends with. This has been coming up with many collective consciousnesses around me, and it's not all to do with me. I've had like one conflict, maybe two in the last 2 weeks, but I've seen some conflicts, and you have to remember, I'm a coach and I coach many people. And I keep hearing these conflicts from people. And some of my clients are living through nightmares, and it's not always their fault. The people that they're dealing with don't have any measurement of self-reflection. And I have one client I'm thinking of in particular that for lack of a better word, I feel like she's trapped. Like she feels like she's trapped. She is trapped in a situation that doesn't have an easy answer other than to pray about it and to show up differently for herself. And that is what really, I mean, sparked this. There's a conflict in my world that I know that if someone is watching, they're going to think it's about them, but it's not all about, look, don't be that egotistical. It's not all about you. And there's actually probably two people that think that, but it's not all about you. And if you are thinking that, it might be time to look in the mirror. Watch, block. She's gonna get blocked. And that's when people run away because they don't want to face their own demons, and they don't want to own their part and take radically responsibility. And radical responsibility means owning your part first. It's not 50-50, not, well, they did this, so I did that. It's your part, period. I've been caught up in that. I was caught up in that recently. Well, she did this, so I'm going to do this. And that was my trigger. Triggered! I was triggered. I've been triggered. I get triggered. I don't get triggered very easily, but there's a couple things in this world that will trigger me. And boy, I have had those buttons pushed recently and triggered, but and I apologized for that. I apologized because my mouth is I come at people with some pretty harsh truths when they come at me with some BS, then you know, it's rough. And sometimes people don't like to hear the truth, especially if it's a dark truth, especially if they have to look at their actions and what they contributed to the situation, and especially if they lie to themselves constantly. But that's neither here nor there. You can't really control anybody else's behavior, and that is the truth. But you can absolutely control how you show up in the world, how you respond to these conflicts, and whether you're contributing to the drama or you're trying to create peace. Sometimes it is just better just to create space, right? Discernment isn't just about other people, it's about you too. It's about you too. It's not just about everybody else. And Let me make sure I was recording this. I was like, oh no, did I even record? I've been talking to myself this whole time. Woo! Yes. I used to go live on YouTube, but because I have an intro video now, I'm have to edit some things. And I'm new. I'm not new to this, but I'm new to this, and I'm continually learning and growing. And so this is raw and real. This is me. This is Lacey. I'm Coach Lacey. Hi. If you feel like you're ready to squash some shit, then go to my website and sign up to have coaching with me, lacyjwatson.com. But what was I saying? Having discernment, having discernment about other people, and not just having discernment about other people, we have to be discerning about our part in the story. We have to ask ourselves, is the person that I'm communicating with open to growth, or do they want to just stay stuck? Like, are they just stuck in the hamster loop because they like it? Excuse me. Are they willing to take personal responsibility? or are they in victim mode and just blame everybody else? There's people out there in victim mode and it's cringy as hell. But, that's where they're at. So just, until they're willing to actually take a look at that, um, they're never going to be in victor mode. There's victim mode and then there's victor mode. And being a victor is being a victory in your own life. You have victory in your own life, in your own story. And you are the storyteller. We are not the author, but we are the storyteller. And it's up to us to set the tone of the story, right? And when we disagree with people and they attack our character, um, how do we respond to that? Are we going to respond that with kindness, or are we going to just attack their character back? You know? And I have a hard time because when my character is attacked, I just take the sword right back, and that's something I'm working on, you know? And looking at the way that people show up for you. I have been so thankful lately for my husband. Um, I'm always thankful for my husband, but man, I don't know what it is, but the last like 2 months, like we have been together for 12 years. And we've been through some stuff. We have been through some hell and back. We've been through it. We've been through it. And most people, would tell me that I should have left him long ago when he was drinking and I should have done that, la, 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 and all these things. But we've stuck together through all the things, everything most people would just divorce over. And I'm glad. I'm glad that we have just stuck it out because he's my best friend. And like, I couldn't have a better friend than him ever. And he's just such a gentle giant. And um, he shows up for me. He shows up for me when no one else will. He is, um, reflective. He tells me the things I don't want to hear when I am not doing what I should be doing. He tells me, like the pot thing. I was smoking too much pot, and boy, we got into a huge fight over that. And I listened though, I'm learning to listen to him better, and I'm learning to take what he has to say into account. And he's not always right, he can be kind of a grump, and he can be difficult too. But none of us are perfect. But I just really appreciate him for being such a light in my life and just staying and dealing with my shit and me dealing with his shit and us just dealing with each other's crap, and like we're just perfect for each other. It's ridiculous. And if you have someone like that, don't let them go, because of some stupid momentary lapse of reason. If someone is your best friend and you're with them and you're arguing with them, and even if it gets really down and dirty, you don't have to be a victim of whatever. You don't have to be a victim. It's up to you. It's up to you whether you want to be a victim and cry about it, or you want to just say, you know what? I had a part to play in this too. And I'm gonna say this is what I did, and I wish more family members would do stuff like that, because sometimes I see and I hear stories and things, and it's just really sad that people don't love people more. There's all this talk about true love and like love and real love, and you really don't know how much you love someone, family include, like your romantic love, family love, friend love. You really don't know how much you love someone until they do something unforgivable. And once they do something that's quote unquote unforgivable, or that pisses you off or whatever, um, your response to that is how determines you move forward. And if you both make I don't want to say unforgivable, everything is forgivable, but by most people's standards, there's like that's, I guess I'll say toxic, something that's toxic. When they do something that's toxic. Um, Most people just run away when shit gets real and they can't handle the fire, you know? And it's like, if you don't like the fire, get the hell out the kitchen, you know? You just gotta have more grit, and you gotta have more grace, and you gotta have more love. So I'm just babbling now, but sometimes loving someone means, if it means taking a step back, But before you do that, you better make sure you've done your work internally to understand why you need to step back. Like, is it because they're genuinely harmful to your peace and growth? Or is it because they're triggering something inside of you that you haven't dealt with yet? You know, and we all have stuff to deal with. I have people that I love deeply, but I can't be around them regularly. And I had to get honest with whether it was because I couldn't take a look in a mirror or because I wasn't handling my own triggers well. And sometimes the person who needs to take that step back and do the work is you or me. Sometimes it's us. Sometimes it's us. Sometimes the conversation that you have with people doesn't feel in alignment or it feels fake because you're not being authentic to your own feelings. And like, how when you engage with someone and it just doesn't feel right. Sometimes the relationship feels hard because you're expecting somebody to change instead of focusing how you can show up differently. And I'm speaking to myself on some level because I have some difficult relationships, and sometimes I want to walk away and just be done because it'd be easier to be done. But I'm not one to ever take the easy road, and I'm not one to cut people off. I don't do that. I think it's a sign of weakness. And unless they are truly like destructive and like going to kill you, or like unless they're sexually abusing you, all the things like there are exceptions to this rule. If you're being abused, like if you're being abused, that is the exception to the rule. Like if you're being physically abused in some way, shape, or form, and they just don't stop, then it is time to have a hard stop, and cut them off because that's not okay. But I usually just I don't cut people off unless they're being like just totally abusive, or they're putting me in actual like danger, physical danger. Um, that's always the exception. Physical danger, you know, or just being dangerous. That's when I cut people off, is when they're dangerous, putting my kids in putting whatever, I don't have kids, but putting people I love in danger. I do have a stepdaughter, but she's grown and she's not my kid. Um, but I care for her. And um, putting my niece and nephew in danger, putting people I love in danger. If you're putting someone I love in danger, then you're out. I'm just totally out. That's just rule of thumb, right? But if they change their behavior and they show over a period of time that they are changing, then you can, give them a little bit of leeway if you feel like it's safe, but otherwise, no. So, it's not unloving to take a step back, but it's also not fair to blame them if you haven't done your own internal work first, fearing that they're not dangerous. And you're not responsible to manage other people's emotions, but you are responsible for managing your own reactions and making sure that you're not projecting your unhealed self onto other people, you know? And the question really is how do we, it's like, okay, this is all fine and well, Lacey, but what do I do about it? How do we love people despite their flaws without becoming doormats? And that comes with radical responsibility and radical self-awareness, taking a look in that mirror and saying, what what are my non-negotiables and what are my triggers, what are the things that you will absolutely not tolerate, but also what are the things that set you off because they remind you of your own unhealed wounds. I was faced with that recently. I have some deep wounds that like just snap me into a different level, snap me into gangsta mode. And those, the non-negotiables for me are dishonesty and disrespect to me or my husband, or attempting to pull me into old patterns that I've grown out of. I've had to recognize when I'm getting triggered by, like, for example, I get triggered by people, drinking or like smoking pot. because of my own relationship with alcohol and weed. And it's not because they're doing anything wrong. I don't want to say that I get triggered. I can't be in those places with those people. And I will go and hang out for about, you'll catch me at a party for like maybe a maximum of 2 hours and then I'm out because I want to start drinking. And that's just not, I want to start smoking and drinking. It's just not where I can be without engaging in that. And I just don't, and the dishonesty and disrespect, that's something I cannot tolerate. And I think that potentially it has to do with when I was a teenager, I was a drug addict and I was repeatedly dishonest and disrespectful to my mother and my stepfather. And I apologize to them to the ends of the world because it's not their fault that I was on drugs. It was mine. It was my fault that I did those things. They didn't do anything wrong. My parents were really awesome parents, and they didn't even stick me in the wrong place at the wrong time. They were very strict. They were very discerning. They just worked a lot, and I was, a 90s kid. And I grew up in a small town, and I'm just got a really strong will. And so it's not their fault that I did drugs. It's mine. And then the next thing that you need to do is communicate clearly. You got to communicate with people and take responsibility for your part in the story. You can't beat around the bush or hint or expect people to read your mind. Say what you mean and mean what you say, right? Like, I love you, but I'm not going to listen to you trash talk me. I'm not going to listen to you trash talk this person I love, but also, you know, but also in the same token, realize that when you've been wrong, I realize I've been short with you lately, and that's on me. And I'm working on some stuff, but I don't want to take it out on you. And following through and staying humble. And if you say you're going to hang out when someone starts yelling, hang that phone up. But if you say you're not discussing something, change the subject or leave. But if you realize later that you're being unreasonable or reactive, apologize and do better, right? That's how we make a change and how we show up more authentically and how we can actually communicate. You got to communicate and follow through and be humble. And the last thing that you can do is pray for people. Pray for them, pray for yourself. Like when someone is pushing your buttons and you're tempted to just write them off completely, challenge yourself to pray for them, you know, and ask God to show you what this situation is trying to teach you and ask him to reveal any pride or judgment or unhealed wounds that might be affecting how you are showing up in the world and showing up in this conflict. And if you really want to know who the people that really love you are and the ones that like your real friends and the family that like just really loves you, watch what happens when you grow and you change. When you start saying no to things that used to be normal, and when you start doing things differently. For me, it was saying no to partying and yet saying yes to going to church and having healthy activities. The real ones will be curious about your growth, even if they don't understand it, and they'll respect your boundaries, even if they don't like them, and they will disagree with you and show up for you when you need them. And on the flip side, the fake ones, the fake people, they will make it all about them and they will push your boundaries to see if you really, really mean it. And they will use your disagreements as reasons to punish you in some way, shape, or form. So, what I want you to walk away from today is walk away with away from. What I want you to walk away with today is that love is not, it's not passive, it's not weak, and it doesn't mean that you have to accept everything that people throw at you. You don't have to accept disrespect. You can love people and be kind to people and still hold your boundary, but you don't have to cut them off either unless they're like truly like violent and dangerous and actually hurting you. That's different than cutting people off because you don't like something, you know. So Real love, real love sometimes looks like saying those hard things, and sometimes it looks like walking away for a moment, sometimes walking away forever. And sometimes it just looks like refusing to enable someone's destructive behavior. But it always includes loving yourself enough to maintain the peace, your values, and your boundaries. So yes, yes, love people despite their flaws. All of us have them. But don't you ever think that doesn't mean that you have to take their crap, because you don't. You don't. So, as always, if life feels out of control, anchor in. You can only control your controllables. That's what you eat, what you drink, what you think, read, watch, move, and how you show up in the world. So if this resonated with you, share it with someone who needed to hear it. If it triggered you, good. Sit with it. Ask yourself, why? That's all you have to do. And remember that you're not responsible to fix everyone. You're responsible for showing up as your authentic and loving self, and love people the way that God has called you to love them. So that's it for today. I hope that you have a beautiful and wonderful, wonderful day, wonderful week. Until the next time I see you. Until then, rise and shine. Ciao.